In this video, I'm going to quickly go through the Year 9 coding assessment task. Okay, so first of all, we have the notification here. This is an informed draft, and it's also here as this one here, Year 9 2020 iSTEM class. It should be on Moodle, but if it's not, these are the same document twice, just different names. Okay, we're going to look at what they say, and then I'm going to show you that I have made a folio for you to fill in. I just find that a lot of people find that easier. Yeah, okay. Sounds good. I don't need that. I'm going to delete some stuff, because that is from stuff for Year 12s. It should keep the title iSTEM coding projects. Okay, so here's what you need to have. You need to have a title page. The title page should include the title, iSTEM code project, your name and your product. It must also include your name, class, teacher, and the date and image related to the project. It's only one class this year, and there's the same teacher for the same two teachers for both, for the one class rather. So that's not as relevant. You can put my name on it because I will be marking this assessment task. Okay, so part one. This might actually be a little bit confusing based on the terminology, but we're going to stick with it. I've called the parts of the assignment you need to do part 1A and part 1B. Maybe that will be fine. Okay, so I have a design situation, design brief. You don't need to do that. I've done that for you. So let's move on to the goals and limitations. Goals are, what do you want your project to do? A good version of this assignment, right? A C version of this assignment will say, I want my game to work and be fun and to demonstrate some good skills, right? That's all you need to write. But for an A level, you need to specify what your goals are and how they will be assessed. The same way that when you get an assessment task, you find out, you're told how your task will be assessed. Let me show you. So for us, we give you a standard that says what will qualify as a excellent standard. Yeah? We tell you what will qualify as a high standard, a sound standard, and a limited standard. We show you that, right? Now I use 1A, 1B. I'm using a different lettering system for this assignment because I've included the design brief and design situation here. You know what? Just to make life easier, I'm going to bring that up here. You know what? We're going to just, for the sake of consistency. And we're going to go 1A and 1B. That way we're matching the assignment. Okay. So that's what I've said. Analyze the goals of your project. Analyze the limitations of your project. What will an excellent standard look like? A thorough and well-considered, that should be a hyphen there, criteria for evaluation, including clear assessment guidelines. The criteria will consider quality, sustainability, time, and cost. I gave you the 4 things you need to judge, right? I've told you the 4 things that you need to judge. Interesting I talk about sustainability, but, yeah. What will that mean? How much are you going to have to go back and edit your code as time goes on? That's a consideration for sustainability. How much time do you have? How much cost do you have? Well, in this case, the cost of the project. Year 9. Yeah, okay. I'm making this work. Okay, so quality is it a good game? Was it fun? Right? Does it work? Sustainability is, how much energy does it use? How much work will it need to be maintained? Time. Well, how long did you have to do it? And what does it need to be? For it to be a good project, it needs to be finished on time. This is going to be free because most of you guys are using computers. You have access to school computers, so that's that answer. Okay, extensive and detailed consideration of limitations, including resources, skills, and other factors affecting the success of your project. So you might say, look, my game's not very good because I had to use JavaScript. That's fine. You might say, my game's not very good because I'm only in 9 and I don't have advanced skills. You might say, my project isn't very good because my teacher, he didn't give me as much assistance as I might have needed. And that's fine, right? If you had a teacher, if you had a personal tutor who could spend 10 hours a week with you one-on-one, you're going to get better results than a teacher who can spend maybe 10, 15 minutes with you in each week. So that's something to consider. Teachers, humans, are resources. Skills are also something that you may not be as developed. You might also think about things like your computer, right? The fact that you were using JavaScript is a limitation. So that's what I want you to write for part 1 and part 1A and part 1B. Okay, so for part 2A, what I want you to do is I want you to look at similar projects to yours. Most of you are doing Pong, so that's great. You can look at other versions of Pong, and you can see what they did and what you learned. I want you to talk about in this process what you learned from looking at other projects. So I'll just show you here, experiment, oh, okay, I've swapped that, experiment with techniques and experiment with research. You know what? If in doubt, we have to swap, we have to match the assessments. So it's a shame. I liked the order of that better, but you know, future Luke might change that. Will he re-record? Who knows? Experiment with techniques. Yeah, okay. What techniques did you use? You might have played around with moving the paddle by the mouse. You might have experimented with drawing shapes. You might have experimented with using the keys. You may have experimented with importing images or sounds. There's all sorts of things you can experiment with. You might say, look, this was too hard. As many of you are learning, two-player Pong is basically is very difficult in JavaScript. I don't want to say it's impossible. It's not impossible. It's just very difficult. I have seen people do it. It was difficult. Similar projects. Similar projects is where you look at other people who have done Pong. Maybe you didn't do Pong. Maybe you did Space Invaders. Maybe you did Snake. In which case, you're looking at other projects. Maybe you decided to stick with Pong, but you were interested in doing other projects that were based on other games. Maybe you wanted to do Pac-Man. Okay, part 3 is the development of ideas. And what I've said here is solutions. And part 3.2 is a pine. Now, I'm going to write down here assessment of solution. You know what? I'm just going to stick with pine. Okay, I want you to come up with multiple different ways of solving your project. I don't want you to come up with the first idea that you came up with. I don't want you just to run with the first idea that you came up with. If you were interested in using keys, if you were interested in using the mouse, if you were interested in having an AI, they're all different solutions to your project. I then want you to evaluate them. Now, this is an acronym or a initialism that PINE stands for positive, interesting, negative, and evaluation. I want you to say keys are a fun way to interact with the keyboard with the paddles, right? Interesting. Well, the original game of Pong used keys, right? That's interesting. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a thing. Yeah. Negative is that using keys requires more effort on my part. It's more difficult. Evaluation is I decided not to use keys to control my game, instead use the mouse because I found that to be an easier solution and it was just as effective. That's you going through one of your solutions. Like I said, we're not looking for much, right? I just want you to come up with 3 separate solutions. Another solution might be the choice of colors. I had, say, for instance, students who made the ball change color every time it touched an object. Yeah? That might be a solution you might experiment with. You might say, I experimented with this solution, but I didn't really like it. Okay, part 4 is management. How did you manage your time? What did you do to make sure that you got your project done in time, especially if you were working with someone else? Right? You might say, I did this part, someone else did that part. You might say that I spoke to teachers to get assistance. I maybe spoke to someone else who was able to help me when the teacher didn't know the answer. Finally, 4.2 is where you need to copy and paste your code. I need to see all of your code. Now, in terms of assessing your code, and this is a pretty important part, I will ask you to explain your code to me. I will pick a line of code and say, I need you to explain what this line of code means. If you cannot explain what that line of code means, right, that's going to be bad. That means you did not learn you just copied and pasted other people's code. Every line in your code you need to be able to explain. I will pick the most difficult line of code for you to explain. Now, if you're working in a group, that's okay. We allow groups of 2 to 3. If you're working in a group, you can say, I didn't write that line of code, and I can then ask you to explain which lines of code you did write, and we can then go from there. But generally speaking, you should know, there'll be a black mark, because the idea is that even if you work in a group, your partners should explain to you what the rest of that code does. Okay. If you put good comments in your code, this will be way easier. You'll just be able to say, I'll say, what does this if statement do? And you'll say, I explained in the comments. And I'll be like, fantastic, say no more. I will read the comments and you won't need to say anything aloud to me. Especially if you're someone who's nervous and doesn't like being put on the spot like that. Okay, part 5 is evaluation. You're going to tell me how good a job you did of achieving your goals in your project. So if you said my game needs to be fun, you say, I played it, and it's fun, but it's not as fun as Fortnite. That's fine. right? I played it, but it wasn't as fun as Minecraft. That's fine, right? You don't need to be, you can say, I still learnt a lot and I'm proud of my project. That is okay. My project was not finished on time. That's another evaluation. You're telling me honestly how well you met the goals that you set up here in part 1A. Part 4B, changes. What changes did you make? Why did you make changes? What changes would you make if you had to do this project again? Now, just before we wrap up, I'm going to go through, so that's this assignment here. If you want to look at the criteria for evaluation, I'll give you a better justification, a better explanation of what I expect. If you don't understand something, let me know. Each part, so that's part 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, should be about a page. A page is about 500 words. Yeah, after the 600 word mark, I sort of stop reading. And I'm saying if you're writing less than 300 words, you might struggle to be able to demonstrate that you've passed, you've reached a sound level of this assignment. What I want to show you now is just a couple of things that I've worked on. And these are linked for you in the Google Classroom. They are linked in here. You can see a video that I have made explaining my code. I have shown you some YouTube tutorials that show you how to use keys. I have included my own code that uses keys and my own code that uses just a bit of variation. So I'll show you what they do. So this drawing here, so what it does is we can see how it randomly moves towards the mouse. It doesn't move consistently towards the mouse. It randomly moves towards the mouse. Now the reason why this is important is because if your code doesn't have any randomization in it, it will get very boring. So you can use this code and you can copy and paste this code to make your object. Now, one student, he wants to use a Space Invader. Instead of having a ball, he's going to use the Space Invader as his ball. And he could copy this code here, this code that says alien, and it has an X and Y coordinate. It has how to make that square, that shape out of a whole bunch of rectangles, right? Or rectangles to make that shape. So if you copy and paste that code, you'll be able to get a B just by taking that standard Pong game and adding in what you see here. There's two parts. One is the shape, importing a shape, and the other one is including just a little bit of randomization so that the ball doesn't move as predictively as it might. This second piece of code, whoops, the same thing, I will show you here. So if you go to this code here, you'll say, but Puns, where is the code? And I'll say, if you click on this, you'll see the code. Ah, pretty clever, right? Okay, so when I refresh, okay, great. This is, if I'm pressing my keyboard, it doesn't work. Disappointing. But when I click on the square, now I have made it so that my ball goes in the direction that I last pressed. So for those of you who want to control the ball, this is a good way if you want to include spin. I don't want to go into the details, right? But even if you just have something where you can control the ball, but when it's below a certain point using spin, then that is something you can use, yeah? Now, I just quickly to finish up, I have a 30-minute video. Now, look, ideally, my videos for Year 9 students, you guys are like less than 15. I really shouldn't have this video be more than 15 minutes long. I really should divide it in 2 videos. But for the sake of convenience, I walk you through this project step by step on this video, which shows you what each line of code does, how I did it step by step to build up the code. Okay, and that will be the end of this video.